I never gave much thought to fate until I met Sophia Hayes at the county fair. The scent of caramel apples, the echo of laughter from the Ferris wheel, the warm evening air. It was the perfect setting for something real to begin. She stood near a game booth, trying to win a stuffed bear, her auburn hair catching the glow of the carnival lights. When she turned and flashed me a smile, that was it. I was done for. We talked that night until the fairgrounds shut down. She had an effortless charm, confident but kind, witty but never cruel. After my last relationship ended in betrayal, I didn't think I could trust anyone again. But Sophia? She made it easy. 6 months later, we were married. It wasn't a reckless, passion-fueled romance. It was steady, built on something stronger. After my ex-fiancé shattered my trust, I had sworn to never make the same mistake again. Before the wedding, my father leaned forward in his worn leather armchair and said, "A prenup isn't about distrust, son. It's about fairness. If you both stay true, you'll never need it." Sophia didn't even hesitate. "I get it," she said, signing the papers without a second thought. "I'd never do that to you." And I believed her. Life was good, almost perfect. I owned a small manufacturing company in Sweetwater, specializing in farming equipment. Business was steady, and I liked being my own boss. Sophia had just landed a role at a marketing firm and was quickly climbing the ranks. We had a routine, morning coffee together, long talks on the back porch after work, Sundays at the lake. Life felt unshakable. Then one phone call changed everything. It was an unknown number. Nothing unusual. I get calls from suppliers, clients, potential deals all the time. After the third ring, I answered. "Ethan Hayes," I said. A deep, deliberate voice replied. "I have some information about your wife that I think you should hear." My gut twisted. "Who is this?" I asked, already uneasy. "Meet me in person. Starbucks on Oak Street. 4 p.m. Before I could respond, the line went dead. At 4 p.m., I walked into the cafe. A man sat alone in a corner, stirring a cup of coffee but not drinking it. Mid-40s, worn-out leather jacket, sharp eyes that had seen too much. He was waiting for me. I sat down. "All right, I'm here. What do you want?" No small talk. No hesitation. Just the truth, cold and hard. "This Friday night, your wife will be at the Hilton Inn with her lover." I scoffed. "You expect me to believe that?" Wordlessly, he slid a receipt across the table. A room reservation under an alias. Paid for with Sophia's credit card. My stomach dropped. I met his eyes. "Why should I trust you?" He exhaled slowly, as if waiting for that question. "Because 5 years ago, my wife did the same thing to me. Left me for another man, took my kids, my house. I know exactly what's happening to you, and I don't want to see another man get blindsided." I gripped the receipt, my mind racing. "So why help me? What do you get out of this?" Before he could answer, another man walked in. Confident smirk, sharp suit. He sat down at our table like he belonged there. "Mr. Hayes, nice to meet you. Name's Victor Grant. I'm a private investigator." I tensed. "And you're here because?" Victor gestured to the man beside him. "Mr. Brown here can't afford my services. But he made me an offer. If we help you, we get paid." I narrowed my eyes. Is this some kind of scam? Mr. Brown raised a hand, stopping me. Then, he reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. "Mr. Hayes," he said quietly, "let me show you some of the work I've done." I hesitated, then flipped it open. The first image hit like a punch to the gut. Sophia, kissing a man. Clear as day. No mistake. No trick of the light. Her hand rested on his chest, the kind of touch that used to be mine. My grip tightened. "Are these real?" Mr. Brown didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and held it out to me. I leaned in. Sophia, holding hands with the same man outside her office. He kissed her. She kissed him back. Not a drunken mistake. Not a misunderstanding. Intentional. Familiar. I handed the phone back, my heartbeat steady, but something inside me had snapped. I inhaled sharply, leaning back. "All right, how much?" Victor didn't hesitate. 5,000 to wire your house with surveillance. 20,000 for evidence of your wife cheating on you at the hotel. I barely thought before nodding. "Do it." Victor closed his laptop with a satisfied nod. "We start tomorrow." At exactly 5:30 p.m. the next day, I pulled into the garage like always. Sophia's car was parked in its usual spot. But inside, something felt off. No dinner cooking. No music playing. Just silence. At 5:45, she came downstairs. Damn, she looked stunning. A black dress that clung to her in all the right places. Perfectly applied makeup. Perfume lingering in the air. I forced a casual smile. Wow, you look great. What's the occasion? She smiled back, completely at ease. One of the guys at work has been after me to go out with him, and I decided it would be fun. My stomach twisted, but I kept my voice steady. Go out with him? Like on a date? Yes. One word. A casual, confident yes. I clenched my jaw. What kind of date? Sophia tilted her head slightly, amused. Since you're the only man I've ever been with, I thought it might be fun to experience someone else. Dinner, dancing, and then a night at a hotel. I blinked. I expected lies. Excuses. But this was surreal. You're spending the night with another man? My voice was sharp now, anger slipping through. She laughed. It's no big deal. Just one night of fun. Tomorrow, I'll be home, and it'll be like nothing happened. I felt something inside me snap. Sophia, I said, voice low and tight. If you do this, our marriage is over. Before she could respond, a car horn honked outside. She smiled. That's him. And with that, she walked out the door. She was gone. The moment Sophia stepped out of the house, she was gone from my life. I didn't need to watch her get into that car. I didn't need to hear her laughter as she drove off to betray me. I already had everything I needed. I walked to my office, grabbed a box of garbage bags, and got to work. For 2 hours, I erased her presence from my home. Every dress, every shoe, every piece of jewelry she owned. I threw it all into the bags without a second thought. I stripped the bathroom of her products, dumped her perfume, and tossed her silk robe into the pile. Next, the safe. I took out her birth certificate, social security card, and whatever documents belonged to her. She wanted a fresh start with her new lover? She could have it. By the time I was done, the house felt lighter. I crammed everything into her car, parked it on the street, and left the keys on the driver's seat. Then, I went upstairs and slept like a man who had just cut a tumor out of his life. By 9 a.m., I was in my office. My assistant, Rachel, knocked on my door. You wanted to see me, Mr. Hayes? I nodded. Remove Sophia from all my insurance policies. Health, life, everything. Make sure she's no longer a beneficiary. Rachel hesitated. Are you sure you want to do this so soon? Divorces can take time. She's not my wife anymore. I interrupted. Just do it. She pursed her lips but nodded. Understood. As soon as she left, I picked up the phone and dialed HR and IT. Jessica, Greg. Conference room. Now. Minutes later, they sat across from me, looking cautious. What's this about? Jessica, my HR manager, asked. I leaned forward. I want to talk about Aaron Tate. Greg, my IT manager, tensed. Why? I need you to scan his laptop, I said. HR needs to be aware of any inappropriate behavior. Greg nodded. On it. Less than an hour later, he returned, his face pale. Ethan, we've got a serious problem. I arched a brow. How serious? Greg set a folder down in front of me. Aaron Tate wasn't just having an affair with Mr. Brown's wife. He was accessing dark websites. Some of them, he swallowed. Human trafficking. A cold rage settled in my gut. And his excuse? Greg scoffed. He said he found it amusing. I exhaled sharply. Call the cops. Greg nodded and left the room. Jessica, still processing what she'd heard, shook her head. Jesus. Well, I'll start preparing his termination paperwork. An hour later, 2 officers escorted Aaron Tate out of the building in handcuffs. He barely had time to shoot me a confused, terrified look before he was shoved into a patrol car. I went home, poured myself a drink, and stretched out on the couch, letting the silence wash over me. At exactly 4 p.m., the doorbell rang. I sighed and opened it. There she was. Sophia. Hi, sweetie, she said, smiling like nothing had happened. My key doesn't work, and why is my car on the street? I stood in the doorway, blocking her. Your key doesn't work because you don't live here anymore. And your car is on the street because it doesn't belong in my garage. Her smile faltered. What are you talking about? This is my home. She tried to step past me, but I didn't budge. I told you last night. If you got in that man's car, you wouldn't have a home to come back to. Her eyes widened. You can't be serious. It was just. I didn't hear the rest. I shut the door in her face. She pounded on it, shouting. After a few minutes, I opened it again. If you don't stop, I'll call the cops. She scoffed. You can't do that. This is my house. I smirked. Remember the prenup? Her face fell just as I slammed the door shut again. 3 hours later, my doorbell rang again. It wasn't Sophia this time. Her brother, Ryan, stood on my porch, arms crossed, scowling. Behind him, their father looked ready to explode. "My sister is at my house," bawling her eyes out, Ryan said. "What the hell happened?" I leaned against the doorframe. "She spent the night with another man. So I dumped her where she belongs." Their father clenched his fists. Then, his anger deflated. "Are you sure?" His voice lacked conviction. I smirked. "Come inside." I led them into the living room, turned on the TV, and pressed play. The surveillance footage filled the screen. Sophia, giggling, whispering sweet nothings to her date, holding his hand, clinging to him like a lovesick teenager. Her father groaned. "Turn it off," he muttered. "I don't want to see this." Ryan exhaled, shaking his head. Then, he did something unexpected. He laughed. "You did the right thing," he said, smirking. "I'll take her back to my house, and then dump her out." Then, he held up his fist. I chuckled and bumped it. Ryan was a friend for life. 2 days later, Sophia was served with divorce papers at her office. Her lover, Logan Smith? He got his own surprise, a lawsuit for alienation of affection. But the real chaos hit when their HR department received evidence of their affair in the office. The company's owner, Richard Grayson, didn't hesitate. They were both fired. A few hours later, Richard's legal team called me. "Mr. Hayes, we'd like to discuss an arrangement." I smirked. "I'm listening." They offered a settlement to drop my lawsuit. The negotiations dragged on, but in the end, I walked away with a six-figure payout. Richard and I even had drinks afterward. What started as a battle ended in a friendship. As for Sophia, dumped. No job, no friends, no family willing to take her in. She had nothing. 2 years later, I sat on my back porch, watching the sunset with a cold beer in hand. Inside, I heard the laughter of my wife, Emma, playing with our son, Leo. Emma was everything Sophia wasn't: loyal, kind, and real. She knew my past, knew the betrayal I endured, and still, she stood by me. Ryan was still in my life, the best man at my wedding, Leo's favorite uncle. As for Sophia, I heard she left town, bouncing from one bad decision to another. It didn't matter. I had everything I needed. I leaned back as Emma stepped outside, Leo in her arms. She smiled. "Come inside, mister. Your son wants his bedtime story." I took Leo in my arms, feeling lighter than I had in years. I wasn't just happy. I was finally at peace.